Have you ever noticed something strange? You can be having a perfectly ordinary day. Nothing terrible has happened. No one has said anything hurtful. Nothing around you has changed. And yet, one thought appears. Then another. Within minutes, your mood has completely changed. You haven't gone anywhere. But somehow, you've traveled miles away from the present moment. Maybe you've replayed an embarrassing conversation from years ago. Maybe you've imagined losing your job. Maybe you've convinced yourself someone is disappointed in you. Your body reacts. Your heart beats faster. Your shoulders tighten. Your stomach sinks. All because of thoughts. It's easy to believe those thoughts are reality. After all, they sound like your own voice. Who else could they belong to? But here's a question that quietly changes everything. If you can notice your thoughts, who is doing the noticing? Most of us never ask this question. From childhood, we learn to describe ourselves using thoughts. I'm shy. I'm smart. I'm awkward. I'm successful. I'm a failure. The mind collects these sentences. Slowly, they become an identity, not because they're always true, but because they're repeated often enough. Imagine standing beside a river. Leaves float downstream. Some are large. Some are small. Some disappear quickly. Others stay in sight a little longer. Thoughts are much like those leaves. Normally, they would drift by. But instead of watching them float away, we jump into the river. We grab onto one leaf. Then we let it carry us wherever it wants to go. One thought says, "I'm not good enough." Suddenly, it feels like a fact. Another whispers, "What if they judge me?" Now the future feels dangerous. Another insists, "You always mess things up." Now your past becomes proof. Nothing outside has changed, only the leaf you're holding. Think about this. Have you ever believed something about yourself that later turned out to be completely wrong? Maybe you thought everyone disliked you. Years later, you discovered they admired you. Maybe you believed you'd never recover from heartbreak. Yet here you are. Maybe you were convinced you would fail. Then you succeeded. The thought felt true, but it wasn't. The strange thing about the mind is that it rarely announces, "This is only a thought." Instead, it says, "This is reality," and we believe it. Not because we're weak, but because that's how the human mind evolved. Long before modern cities existed, the brain's job wasn't happiness. It was survival. Survival required constant prediction, constant scanning, constant storytelling. What was that sound? What if danger is nearby? What should I do next? A brain that imagined threats often survived longer than one that ignored them. The habit remained. Today the dangers are different. Instead of predators, we fear rejection, failure, embarrassment, loneliness. The mind still predicts, still rehearses, still warns. It's doing exactly what it evolved to do. The problem begins when we mistake every prediction for the truth. Imagine sitting in a movie theater. The lights go out. The film begins. Soon you're laughing, then crying. Your heart races during the suspense. For 2 hours, the story feels completely real. Then the credits roll. The lights come back on. Nothing actually happened to you. You simply became absorbed in the story. Thoughts work the same way. Every day your mind projects thousands of tiny movies. Some are about yesterday, some about tomorrow, some about people, some about yourself. Most are never questioned. They're simply believed, until they become the world you live inside. Here's something worth noticing. You don't choose your next thought. Try it. Before your next thought arrives, can you predict exactly what it will be? Of course not. It simply appears, one after another, like clouds crossing the sky. If you don't create every thought, why should every thought define who you are? This doesn't mean thoughts are bad. Without thinking, we couldn't solve problems, build friendships, learn languages, create music. The mind is a remarkable tool, but a tool isn't meant to become its owner. Imagine carrying a backpack every day. At first it's empty. Then someone places one stone inside. A criticism. Another stone. A compliment. A failure. A success. An expectation. Years pass. The backpack grows heavier. Eventually, you forget you're even carrying it. You simply call its weight me. But what if you've been carrying things that were never truly yours? Other people's opinions, old mistakes, temporary emotions. Stories you repeated so often they started sounding permanent. Perhaps you've mistaken the backpack for yourself. There are moments when this illusion quietly disappears. Watching the ocean, listening to rain, holding a newborn child, walking through a forest, looking up at a sky filled with stars. For a brief moment, the thinking slows, and strangely, you don't disappear. In fact, you often feel more alive than ever, more present, more connected, more yourself. Isn't that interesting? When thought becomes quieter, life often becomes clearer. This doesn't mean we should fight our thoughts. Trying to force the mind into silence is like trying to flatten the surface of a lake with your hands. The more you struggle, the more waves you create. Instead, notice them, without immediately believing them, without pushing them away. A thought says, "I'm not enough." Maybe answer softly, "That's a thought." A thought says, "Everything will go wrong." Again, that's a thought. Not because you're denying reality, but because you're remembering something important. Thoughts describe, they don't always tell the truth. More than 2,000 years ago, Buddhist teachings pointed toward a simple but profound observation. Much of our suffering begins when we cling to what is constantly changing. Thoughts change. Emotions change. Memories change. Even the stories we tell about ourselves change. Yet we spend so much of our lives trying to build a permanent identity from things that never stay still. Perhaps that's why we feel exhausted. We've been trying to become something solid using clouds. Maybe you are not the voice inside your head. Maybe you are the quiet awareness that hears it. The thoughts will continue. Some kind, some fearful, some wise, some completely absurd. They don't need to disappear. They simply don't need to become you. Because the moment you stop believing every thought, you create a little space. And inside that space, peace has room to enter. Thank you for spending these moments with me. Until next time, may your mind become a little quieter. May your heart become a little lighter. And keep becoming less so you can truly become more.